we really appreciate that you're joining us today, and we're really excited as well to have you today. And for us, as far as I have mentioned, we are now preparing for the Unicorn Cup finals. And we want to know how actually everybody who's in our ecosystem, Startup Network ecosystem, how did you enter it? How you started cooperating with Startup Network?
So my COO, he was looking at various ways that we could connect with VCs. My particular company has what we understand is quite a unique offering to VCs, and someone suggested that we look at the unicorn battles. Because we also work with CEOs of companies, it seemed like a good ecosystem for us to be involved in.
So it was like this history when you started. How was it actually? Tell us.
Overall, we're excited about things. I mean, there's always little technical issues when you start off with any new company, but overall, we're excited about the situation. In particular, also, I think the fact that it's gone online. On one hand, it would have been lovely to go to Rio. But to be honest, to go to Rio for what was a 2-hour meeting with, 7 companies and, a few other judges would have been a colossal waste of time and money. There's just no way I could justify that. Whereas to spend a couple of hours online was super useful. And the fact that we can connect so easily now and have these online events is just super useful. I don't think it will completely take the place of offline events. It is lovely to go and meet 200 people, but I think that it is, as I often say, and not or. It's not online or offline. Hopefully now it's online and offline.
I think that we are going to have a new world reality will be like that. We are having like hybrid events. I'll tell you. And by the way, when you're saying that you are more in favor of online events mostly, quite often I can see right now people are actually feel kind of nostalgic about the offline events. So it's not your case.
I mean, I am nostalgic. Again, it's and not or. For me, it is super useful to meet a new group of people from South America that realistically, to justify the time and expense to fly is just too much. However, yeah, if there was an event in London, I would definitely want to go to it. So again, it's and not or.
Understood. Tell us more. So you've been focused on the Latin America. Can you tell us, have you been watching all of the startups pitching there at the events? Tell us more. Which unicorn battles have you watched? Have you participated in? And what do you think about startups?
Yeah. So first of all, just to self-disclose something that my father had a startup in 1980. When it wasn't called a startup anymore, and he worked hard and built it up. It was an engineering company. The parking meters and the barriers in big multi-story car parks my dad built and created the company, and then sold it in the 1980s. So I'm sort of startup is sort of in my blood. My brother also has a startup, and he now owns his own bank. That's what he started up, and so it's sort of. It's within the nature of my family that I've also done it. 3 of my kids are thinking of going into the startup world, so it's very much who and what we are. I think it's a fantastic world. I think it is one of the most difficult things in the world to be a CEO or senior management team member of a startup, especially a fast-paced VC-backed startup, because there are so many skills you have to learn so quickly. And you don't have the normal time frame to develop your skill system, and therefore it's incredibly pressurized. And to be honest, I've seen most people do it who unfortunately often get very burnt, don't make any money, and it's often quite painful. But for the few people that will survive, it is absolutely brilliant. It's what I call the ice cream version. Vanilla outsells everything else by 3 to 1. The top 3 ice creams, vanilla, chocolate and strawberry, outsell all the rest of the next 10. And the top 10 outsell everything else. That we have a system that the capitalist process creates, which is both for the good and for the bad, that the very top people win outside awards. So if you can get to the very, very top, the rewards are so humongous compared to anything else. Unfortunately, very few people will achieve that.
Well, actually, I really like how you are comparing this. Really nice metaphor when we are talking about the types of entrepreneur who will get successful in this case. From your perspective, as you mentioned, if I'm not mistaken, you have already like 30 years of entrepreneurial experience. Am I correct? If from 90s. So, and you mentioned actually, well, the set of skills which you need to develop. May you name those? Which are the most important for each entrepreneur, probably?
So I think the most important skill to develop, bar none, is the ability to learn how to develop skills as fast as possible.
Understood. It's like
the essence of decoding and learning a new set of skills very fast is the key skill, I think, that anyone in the startup world who's a CEO or senior team member needs to learn.
That's really an interesting thing. Actually, have you met this kind of ability to learn this new set of skill of decoding among some of startup founders who you met at Unicorn Battles?
I wouldn't have known them for long enough at the Unicorn Battles. You can only see that on, how it goes on for a period of time. I'd need to know somebody for at least 6 months to see how quickly they can actually learn a skill. But it's something that I teach people how to do. It's part of what my job is, to teach people. Anyone can learn it, like anyone can learn how to play football. Some people are naturally more gifted at it. A skill is by definition something that you have some degree of competence, and then you try and improve it by feedback, iteration, and then more feedback. And so everyone can improve it. My belief at the moment, which was part of my PhD studies, is it's got to do with the neuroplasticity of the brain. Different brains have different levels of neuroplasticity and can adapt and change quicker than others. The more quickly one can learn and adapt, the more malleable and flexible one brain is in neuroscience, neuroplasticity, the quicker one can intrinsically learn those skills.
I can definitely tell that this is one of the most important abilities of the brain. And actually, I've heard about this notion quite a lot. And honestly, I would be glad to learn more about your research, because I'll tell you, like, this is again the metaphor, but still, I'm not so in favor of cockroaches. But as they say, as far as that cockroaches are the ones who can adapt to any kind of circumstances, they have lived when they were like, we had like how many centuries, not only centuries, they have lived before, and they still are living on this planet. So I can think that this is like not for people to become like them, but in terms of being adaptable, and in terms of brain being adaptable to learn all the time new things. I'll definitely agree with you. So from your perspective, because you actually, as you mentioned, like you have like this huge experience of 30 years, can you tell us, like, were there like abilities, were there more possibilities, are there more possibilities right now for the startup founders to meet investors, like during such events? Was it much more difficult like 30 years ago, and how it is actually is progressing, how it has changed its situation about that?
Yeah, so first of all, I've done lots of different things over the last 30 years. So I was a VC for a period of time. I was a teacher in school for a period of time. I've done lots of different things. So I haven't just been doing what I've been doing now. It's actually relatively recently that I focused on VCs and CEOs. But what I would say is that technology has enabled us to reach more people, but it's also meant that so many of us have been overloaded with contacts and information that we've become much more limited in who we access. So we thought, for instance, when the internet first came out, that it would democratize knowledge. what we found is the opposite. It's actually created more limited thinking, because you can find people that think the way you think, and you tend to go to those news websites and those sites that you naturally like, and then you just get caught up. So for instance, I try and watch Fox News, CNN, Al Jazeera and BBC. Most people will choose one of those and pretty much stay just with that, and therefore will get their news limited through a very narrow lens. Now, I personally find Fox News very uncomfortable to watch. It's not my style, it's aggressive, it's nasty, but I force myself to watch it, aware of the discomfort. And an awful lot of people, though, don't do that. And therefore, what happens is you tend to stay within the circles that you have already. So although technically speaking, it should be easier, often it's not. I think one of the great things that Unicorn Battles does is open up that connectivity to a greater group of people than you might naturally find. And certainly my experience of the battles are, there are some companies that are just absolutely appalling. And I guess one of the feedbacks that I would say is that somebody from Unicorn Battles might want to just go over the presentations, because some of them are just horrendous. Some of them are superb and are brilliant. And certainly as a judge, it stands out very clearly who it is and who it's not. And that capacity, though, for companies that are brilliant to create new relationships and new connections with appropriate people is very, very helpful.
Understood. By the way, actually, as far as you're a partner at our events, can you tell that you actually reached the goal you were pursuing when you were actually connecting with Startup Network?
So I think it's too early to say, because I literally, have only participated in two. My second one was only yesterday. But certainly the initial connectivity was, there were a group of people. I just don't know the network well enough yet. It's only twice to see whether or not it is or isn't, wide enough to reach my intended audiences. There seemed to be, it was hard, to be honest, as a judge. There were meant to be something like 10 judges, but only 2 or 3 of them spoke, and most of them didn't even appear on the videos. So it was quite difficult to connect with them when people don't even show their faces on a video, and they don't say hello on the chat box and don't make it open to people to connect with them. So that was a little bit disappointing.
Well, I'll tell you, probably, definitely when you visit more of the events, because quite a lot of them, they are visiting quite often. And sometimes maybe they're so accustomed that everybody else is already familiar with them. Everybody knows them. So they don't, this time, they don't always show up as they maybe at the beginning. So you should definitely join more of our events, I'm sure. I'm really curious, are you awaiting our Unicorn Cup finals? Are you interested who will be in the finals this time?
Yeah, it will be interesting to see whether or not the quality of the companies does represent significantly better. As I said, I think the companies and the presentation have been at very mixed levels. So I'm hoping that the finals will be some really interesting companies that really sort of, show themselves that these are, hopefully some really top companies in terms of, the ideas. But hopefully, there's a core thing as a VC. There's just 3 really simple things that you always want to know. What problem are you solving? Why is your solution different from anyone else? Yeah. And realistically, how are you going to make money? And I would say out of the, I don't know how many presentations I heard, but certainly out of the last 2, let's say there were maybe 15 presentations I heard, I would say only about 3 companies actually said those 3 basic core ideas. And that was quite frustrating. When you've got 3 minutes, someone needs to say, tell us the problem, tell us why your solution is going to work and why it's different, and tell us how you're going to make money and how much money. And that, rarely did you get all of that.
In this case, is it important also for whom you're doing this?
What do you mean, sorry?
I mean, in this case, how you make money, what you're solving, but also like for whom are you solving this issue?
I don't think it matters whom you're solving. As a VC looking to invest in a company or looking at a company and seeing how successful they are, look, the size of the addressable market is essential. But I mean, you know, who the people are, I mean, to some extent, if you've got a good idea, it doesn't matter who the people that you're serving are. It's whether or not the product solves a problem that no one else yet has probably solved.
Understood. Actually, from what you actually said, you've been like a kind of on both in both roles. You've been a judge. You're been working in VC. You also are an entrepreneur, so you know how to, on the one hand, how to pitch. On the one hand, how to evaluate pitching. How do you consider? Should be there more in general such kind of pitching events for the startup founders where they can meet possible the investor who will invest into his project, into his startup or her startup, and like, or do we have enough of them?
I mean, I think, look, one of the things that I do now is that I coach VCs. And one of the problems is always assessing whether or not that particular company is going to be successful or not. And the sheer number of companies, again, the internet has, you know, made the world a much bigger place and a much smaller place. So the problem is always how you filter. So the idea of somebody who's got 3 minutes to tell you everything about a company is really, really very highly prized by any VC, with the caveat that if you're listening to 3 minutes of crap, yeah, then, you know, it's the boringest thing in the world. You want to know these 3 things very quickly and very succinctly. And so I really think it's got to do with the quality of the presentations rather than just the medium itself. And so often I think people confuse, you know, activity for meaningful action. So it's really about, if there can be, let's say, it'll be very interesting to see in the cup final 10 really high quality, you know, really good presentations where people have figured out the basics, understand what they're doing, understand how to pitch, to be blunt, also be able to speak in the language that they're pitching in. It's really incredibly unhelpful if people can't speak English properly and that they're pitching in English. It's just very, very difficult to understand them, as simple as that. And they don't have the confidence to be able to speak clearly. Fair, unfair, right, wrong, you know, you need to be able to present the ideas in the language that the person who's listening is able to understand. I understand that it's easy for me because I naturally speak English, but there have been a number of pitches that are difficult. So to answer your question, if they're of high quality, much more. If they were low quality, much less.
Understood. Well, actually, I really hope that because we're going to have this time, like the winners from very different, not only parts of the world, but also from very different verticals. So in this case, I think that you'll have to see a lot of very interesting projects. And hopefully, I think when they will, like, for example, watch our interviews before the Unicorn Cup finals, they will definitely answer 3 of your questions, which you want to hear the answer for. And also, definitely, I think that when you will join us for the Unicorn Camp finals, they will also would be glad to learn more about the set of skills that you are trying to learn future and current entrepreneurs. So, Simon, thank you so much. We will really appreciate your time, and I hope that you'll enjoy our Unicorn Cup finals. See you in our events, and have a lovely evening.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye. Take care.
Bye-bye.